Depo Talk, Depo Talk, another topic broken down on Depo Talk. Wonder what it could be? Let's check in with Jan and Rosalie.
Welcome to Depo Talk with Veritext principals Jan Ballman and Rosalie Kramm. Each episode looks at a deposition or proceeding-related topic of the day through the lens of two industry veterans with over 80 combined years of experience. And now, without further delay, we are on the record. Take it away, Jan and Rosalie.
Good day, good people. Welcome in and welcome back to Depo Talk. My name is Jan Ballman, and as always, I'm coming to you from our offices in downtown Minneapolis.
And I'm Rosalie Kramm, coming to you from sunny, spectacular San Diego.
Rosalie, the topic we still get asked to talk about most is real time, kind of surprisingly, because it's been around for about a quarter of a century, and we introduced this game-changing technology to the legal community, and they thought it was great, yet the vast majority of court reporters still do not offer it. And so maybe it's not all that surprising that the vast majority of lawyers still don't use it. And if I had to guess, I'd bet that most lawyers don't use real time for a lot of the same reasons that most court reporters don't write real time. So today I thought we could do a deep dive that is focused on reporters who secretly, or maybe even openly, would love to, but still have not yet found their way to making that leap of faith into the rewarding realm of real-time reporting.
Jan, this is one of my favorite topics, and I know in my heart of hearts that a lot of the reporters don't step into the world of real time because they're afraid. And truly, there's not a lot to be afraid of. If you're a good writer, you can definitely do real time. And I'm glad this is our Depo Talk topic for the day.
As am I, and I agree with you. And obviously it goes without saying that a steno's writing skills combined with a relatively conflict-free dictionary play a big role in real-time readiness. There's volumes of resources out there on that, if that's the barrier. But today, as opposed to kind of talking about how to write cleaner and such, all important things, I'd like to take a swing at beating back some of the tougher, more nuanced issues around real-time, like the mental and psychological barriers that so often stand in the way of reporters taking that leap of faith. What do you think about that?
I think that's a brilliant idea. Let's do it.
All right, Rosalie, and perhaps we can, take it down to the very basics and look at exactly what it takes today from an investment standpoint in hardware and software to start offering real time, which is quite different than what it used to be. People may be surprised at how little it takes today to start offering real time. Are you prepared to show us maybe a little bag of tricks in that regard?
I've got my bag of tricks, Jan.
Super. Okay, and then maybe we can wrap up by addressing a few of those scary FAQs that most reporters seem to have around the anxiety with regard to the insecurities that go with, as we call it in the industry, writing naked. So, Rosalie, that's a lot to break down, but you know what? You're one of the best, most experienced real-timers in the industry today. You've been doing it for a really long time. So I'm hoping you're up for sharing some of your best real-time readiness tips and tricks that will then hopefully help to inform and inspire some of our friends out there to take that leap and go out there and offer real time. So you down for that?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, how about if we take the toughest problem first? Let's start by addressing some of the anxiety-based barriers that have long caused hesitation and consternation for reporters contemplating offering real time for the first time.
Well, Jan, like you said, I've been writing real time for a couple of decades now. And believe me, I was super scared at the beginning. And what I've learned is practice really helps quell a lot of the fears. And when I say practice, I mean not only practicing your writing so you know that you write clean and you're a real-time writer, but also practice in knowing the equipment, knowing the setup, how it works. And when I had a firm many years ago, we would actually have a real-time party on a Saturday, let's say. We called it real-time bonanza. And everyone would bring their equipment and we would set up a speed test. Everyone would hook in with their devices. And just the practice of going through and knowing what you need to hook up, which is really nothing these days, And perhaps if you're in an area where you have a friend who's a real-time reporter, maybe get that person to come over and show you the ropes. It really does quell a lot of the fears and makes you much more confident when you get into a deposition setting and a real-time job. Another thing people are scared of is speed. And believe me, we all are a little nervous at the beginning of a deposition, perhaps a real-time deposition. You have the videographer doing the read on, and no one is reading their real-time screen during a videographer's read on. So you don't have to worry about that. Then there's the appearances. The attorneys state their appearances usually very quickly. And once again, no one is reading their real-time screen during that read on. Then you have the admonitions where attorneys just go boom, 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 boom. And once again, people are not reading the real-time screen during the admonitions. So when you think about it, by the time you get to the admonitions are done, you've got the cadence of a deposition, you understand how quickly people are speaking, you get into the rhythm, and then you can just start writing and everything flows. So maybe you had some fears at the beginning, but once you start writing, it's good to go. So that's one thing people are scared of. And I feel that if people would just practice their hook-ins, understand their CAT software, which is not difficult, then that goes far when it comes to quelling some of the fears of getting into real time.
Those are great points, and they hit on the head some of the biggies with regard to what causes that consternation of reporters, that the fear of that unknown, and what happens if I get assigned a real-time job and then everything's wonky. You know, we had an actual initiative around that, similar. And again, what we were trying to do was remove some of those scary barriers and provide this super safe environment for reporters to try real-time for the first time. So, you know, again, what do reporters worry about most? That the unknown. What if it's horribly fast? What if the witness has a tough accent? What if I'm writing terribly that day? That's really where a lot of the anxiety resides, right? But if a reporter could start the proceedings and while writing and getting past, as you say, the admonitions and the read-ons and all those really fast things, and then decide, you know, hey, today I actually have a wonderful witness, and this is a pretty easy subject matter that we're talking about, and these are really nice attorneys, and you know, some of those big real-time fears are actually non-factors today. You could actually decide this would be a great day for me to journey out there and take my first swing at it. And what you could do is wait for a break, just a coffee break, so to speak, or to break for lunch, and then pull out those viewing tablets, the things we're going to be talking about. We're going to cover those really sufficiently in a little bit here. But then, you know, before going back on the record, you would say something like, counsel, I'm in training to offer real time, and as part of my training, I need to put some display devices out for a certain number of hours. So I hope you don't mind that I've set a few up while you are out on break. You can feel free to use them. You don't have to. It's just something I need to do as part of my training. So now you've taken neutralized a lot of the fears. You've taken certain expectations out of the equation. What if I make a bunch of mistakes? Well, they're expecting that. You just basically told them you're training on this, and so they're not expecting perfection. And I wouldn't even be surprised if they end up telling you, wow, you're really good at this. Or maybe, it's the attorney's first time that they've even seen real time and they're completely fascinated. So, it's really a low risk, really pretty much no lose proposition. And the best part is that the reporter's in total control as to when to do this, and actually how many times to do it before declaring themselves ready for a paying real-time job.
I think that's brilliant, Jan. And not only is the reporter getting more comfortable providing real time, but let's face it, if the attorney is exposed to it for the first time, they can see it as a great service and might start having the real time service. They might ask for that court reporter. It might be a great way to start getting some more business. Brilliant, brilliant idea.
Exactly. Turned out to be a really great initiative and a great way to launch. So, okay, so now maybe we've hopefully beaten back down some of the psychological barriers to entry. Rosalie, if a reporter is now kind of mentally gearing up to real time, what exactly do they need from an equipment and software standpoint these days in order to get started?
Well, Jan, the first place that the reporter needs to go is to their CAT software, or to decide which of the platforms that are out there available they would like to provide real time with. For instance, if you are a Case Catalyst writer, you might want to use CaseViewNet. If you're an Eclipse writer, you might want to use Bridge Mobile. There's Live Litigation has a product. I've been using Remote Counsel since the pandemic. It's been really a very solid platform when it comes to remote depositions. And so once you decide which of the different platforms or software that you want to work with, then what you're going to need to do is just practice. Once again, like I said, before the deposition ever happens, use that software and just hook in and practice. And all of these different software companies, they actually have a place on their website where you're able to hook in and practice to make sure everything's connected and everything's going to work. Because when you get to the deposition, you just want to be confident that everything is going to work first time. And it really is plug and play these days. It's simple. Basically, any one of these products is going to send a link to you or to the attorney that's ordered the real time. And the link goes to their email address. They open their email address. There's a link and they hit the link and basically you're ready to go. It's plug and play. There are no more cords and routers and things like there used to be in the old days. So you decide which software platform you're going to use. And then the next thing you do is, let's say you're doing remote depositions. You're just going to be able to send an email to whatever attorney is ordering the real time, and then they open it up. Typically, attorneys these days have more than one screen at a remote deposition. They have one where they might see the witness, and then they might have a screen where they have their notes, and then they have a third screen where they see the real time scrolling. So the attorney just opens up that email, hits that link, boom, they're on. And if you're doing in-person deposition with real time, what I suggest is you buy some equipment, some viewers. You might have an old laptop that you might want to use. I have purchased off Amazon some refurbished iPads, so they were inexpensive. And as long as your device can have Wi-Fi and receive an email, then you're good to go. So for instance, I will go to a law firm and I will go into settings on my iPad. I will find the Wi-Fi password and get on the attorney's Wi-Fi at the law firm on all my different devices. And I have Gmail app, it's on the device. So I'm able to just forward that email invitation for real time to my iPad. I open that email and hit the link and boom, it's ready. And so I've got these. And what I've also purchased, which is very inexpensive, are these little stands. And basically I just put the real-time screen in front of the attorneys on a conference table. And the day before the deposition, if I have real time, I use my handy duty charger, my 4 charger, real-time charger, charge all my iPads. I bring 4 to a deposition. Actually, I bring 8 because you never know. And I've got some really old iPads. You might as well bring them to a deposition. Might be your lucky day where you have 8 hook-ins. But I have at least 4 that I completely charge the day before. And typically when I'm at a deposition, it's usually 2 attorneys that want the screen. And what I will do is set the screen in front of them. And they really love this because they're not tethered, because these are already fully charged 100%. And halfway through the day, I'll take the other 2 that are charged and put in front of them. So the attorneys really appreciate that I bring their device, my own devices. A lot of attorneys these days are bringing their computer and they prefer to use their computer, which that's fine with me. I just email them that link and so they can view it however they want. So it's really very simple these days when it comes to writing real time, as far as just sending a link to someone's email address, and they hit the link and boom, they're up. So that's not anything to be worried about when it comes to setting up a deposition with real time.
something we're all really familiar with in terms of Zoom. Sounds like the very same thing. We all know that was a little bit frightening at first, but it comes down to, for the most part, clicking a link and there you are in the room. So, and I do remember back 25, 30 years ago that reporters actually felt more stressed around the setup piece and all the pressure they had to make sure the feed was going through and, getting around the law firm firewalls. Attorneys would just hand court reporters their laptop and say, hook it up. And they had no idea how to. And there was cables strewn all over the tables, like you said. I mean, that was actually the biggest barrier to doing real time early on. So it's great to see how technology has basically streamlined all that, which has taken a lot of that stress out of the equation for the reporter. So that's wonderful. So that seems pretty basic, actually. It's pretty inexpensive. Refurbished iPads and such are easy to come by. So let's say we have some friends out there who have now mustered up the courage to take the big leap, and they see that, oh, this isn't going to really set me back too far. Let's say they're now actually out there taking jobs where the client is paying for their real time. Yay. Now let's discuss some of the more common comments or situations maybe that they may encounter, perhaps from a green attorney who's not very familiar with how and what real time really is, and how to maybe address some of the situations that may come up in those situations when you're actually writing real time, and attorneys might say something like, oh, do you know that you wrote that wrong, that type of thing.
Right, Jan. And this, I feel, happens to everyone. Even today, sometimes when I know I'm going to have a very difficult pharmaceutical witness, scientist, and all the attorneys are PhDs, I get a little nervous before the deposition. And I do a little bit of research. I usually will Google the witness and just find out what their specialty is or what their scientific background might be. Just a little bit of reading to give me an idea of what I might expect. But what I do is when I'm writing, I write notes to the attorneys. They're also to myself. And for instance, we all know how attorneys love to read from documents as fast as they can. And you might interrupt and say, excuse me, please slow down, but it's still really difficult. And so while they're reading, I'll get what I can, and then I will put a parenthetical in, says reading. And so that, I feel, tells the reader later, if it's a rough draft and I didn't have a chance to clean that part up, that they're reading something, so don't worry, it's going to be cleaned up. And another thing I'll say is when people are reading exhibits or documents, they're not looking at the real-time screen. They're looking at that exhibit or that document. So you don't need to be worried that they're going to critique you because you didn't write something perfect when they're reading from a document. Another thing I do is I will put in append spelling. So whenever there's a name or something that comes up that I don't know how to spell, I'll throw that in, and that helps me later find all the different parts of the transcript where I need help spelling during a break or whenever. But sometimes also it will cue the attorneys to suggest to the witness, could you spell that? And so they're becoming more mindful of the fact that when there is a phrase or something that's very difficult, that the reporter might need some help with that. If they don't do it during the deposition, that's fine. I can get it later, but it just keeps people more mindful of the fact that I'm writing. Another thing that I might do when they're talking really fast, and let's say you do have a tiny drop, I will just hit a bunch of steno. I'll just hit a bunch of keys. So steno comes up on their real-time screen, and they can just think that that must be my brief for whatever was just said. Obviously, if there's something that's out of control and you're dropping, you need to stop the proceedings. And we do have a different Depo Talk about interrupting. So I would refer you there. But that's just another little thing to do, because if your fear is, what if I drop, put a bunch of steno in there. And another thing I'll say about the depositions with pharma, I know I had a deposition with a German scientist last month, and it was really difficult. And the attorneys are all PhDs in science, but they also know the case. So while I'm writing and getting maybe parts of words or the phrase, they understand the case because they know the case. So they can read through what you're writing and they understand what the witness is saying. And so later you might ask them to help figure out what it was, what that phrase was, or that pharmaceutical drug. But they're very forgiving at that moment because they know how hard you're working and how difficult the phraseology is. And so attorneys actually are very kind, and many times if they can see I'm struggling and to understand, particularly a witness with an accent, they will restate whatever that witness said slowly so that I can just confirm in my mind, oh, that's what they said. So attorneys are kind. They don't expect perfection. Let's think about it. They get a rough draft at the end of the day sometimes, and that rough might be pretty rough. So when you're thinking about the fact that this is, as you put it earlier, raw writing or naked writing, you're just writing, they understand that this is not going to necessarily be perfect. It'll be perfect at the long run when they get the final, but not at that moment. And attorneys know how hard you're working. And another thing I might do is write myself a note, or actually I'm writing a note for the attorneys when let's say, out of the context, I understand, for instance, the word tier, T-I-E-R, is what was meant to be written, but I actually wrote T-E-A-R. I will write a little parenthetical, tier is tier. And so everyone can relax, that a reporter knows what's happening, and it's just a message to them. They might not even care, but I just want to make sure everybody knows that I understand that this is supposed to be that, or I'm going to fix this. I heard aren't, and it should have been are. I'll just write little parentheticals just to relax everyone's mind. They might not even notice, but it just makes me more comfortable and confident when I'm writing. So those are just some tricks that I've done just because I feel like communication is important. And so if the attorneys know that you're confident and that you understand that you might have misstroked something or heard something wrong, it's going to be okay in the end. And if an attorney does want to comment to me and say, gosh, Miss Reporter, I said absorb, not absurd on page 24, line 7. I say, all right, thank you. And I actually remember that moment. And I thank you very much. I'll make sure that's correct. And I even tell the attorneys, I don't mind if you see something that I've written wrong in here because I didn't hear or I didn't understand something. It doesn't hurt my feelings or make me feel bad if you give me a suggestion or tell me what actually was said, because I feel like at this moment, at this time in my life, in my career, my ego is not so fragile that I worry that someone might critique something that I write. And actually, I'm grateful for a little bit of help.
Those are great. I mean, I love the fact that you make a point of they're not expecting perfection, and especially the more real time that an attorney has experienced, they get it. They know this is one step below a rough draft, and they're not expecting perfection at all. I love the one, just mash up some steno, and that could be anything. They don't know steno, so it could be whatever you need it to be at that moment. Oh, I just wrote myself a note, or oh, it didn't translate because you were talking so fast. All those great little tips from the inside, and I just want to say that it would be easy to kind of get a little bit defensive. Maybe especially for a newer real timer, if an attorney said something like that, like, oh, by the way, there was a mistake on this page, not realizing how obvious that is to everyone. And I like your approach very much, but another approach might be, thank you, counsel, that will be corrected on the final. Yes, thank you. I was aware about that, but thank you. Just making sure, just reinforcing to them, yep, there are going to be some mistakes. This is a real-time feed, it's raw. And so those are all things that people will end up getting more comfortable with along the way. And I think we might be remiss if we didn't just point out one of the real reasons to jump in here, despite all of these insecurities that we can have. I mean, this is a big moneymaker for reporters, obviously.
Jan, I'm actually, it's surprising how much money a real-time job can provide a court reporter. I liked it because a part of me, maybe I'm a little odd, but I just like the challenge of trying to be perfect. But the money is definitely a factor that I think reporters need to take into account. And some reporters might say, golly, I live in a geographical area where they never asked for real time. But with the advent of remote depositions, that's really not a reason anymore. I know that I've had depositions in the South where I couldn't get covered in different areas, different little towns, because there was no real-time reporter near there. And now with the advent of remote depositions, that really isn't a reason not to jump in and hone your skills and just become confident and comfortable, because you never know when that job's going to get called in and you have an opportunity to write real time and make a lot of money. So I'm just hoping that this Depo Talk helps quell some of those fears and really gets reporters to want to go and just do it.
Right. I mean, it's no different than, why would you not want to sell exponentially more copies when it's all the same amount of work? It's basically the same with real time. And you're just doing the same job. Eventually, as you become a real-time writer, you're writing the same way all the time, and you're just making more money. So those are excellent points, Rosalie. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing some of those really vulnerable moments you've had as a real timer along the way, which you've clearly survived very nicely. There haven't been too traumatizing, as well as some of your really great secrets on overcoming some of the really common real-time anxieties, in your tips and tricks for just getting real-time ready. You know, let's not forget, real-time it remains an insanely powerful tool for reporters, and it is still the one big differentiators that stenos have in the court reporting industry. And for that reason, we hope this provides helpful ways in just taking control of the situation, beating back some of those fears, getting ready and just doing it. Make the leap of faith into the wonderful world of real-time reporting.
Absolutely, Jan. Just do it.
Just do it. So friends, that's going to do it, as we say, for this edition of Depo Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you next time.
And Jan, we're off the record.
Depo Talk, Depo Talk, another topic broken down on Depo Talk.